Hey, welcome back to Dad Life Chess. This is Joel. Thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already watched round one, go back and watch that. It was a fun game with my friend Tim. It was important in light of what I'm about to say. So if you didn't watch round one, spoiler alert. All right, I gave you time. I won round one, and it ended up playing out to be quite interesting. I mentioned in the first video that there were only 5 of us registered. I was the highest rated opponent. I was a little bit bummed because I wanted to play really higher rated players, and everybody was rated like 1,000 and lower. Well, right at the last minute, 2 players joined the tournament. One being about 1,600, well, it's a little over 1,600. And then my next round opponent was 1,889, almost 1,900, and then the rest of the field. Well, in round one, the lowest rated player ended up getting a bye, but the 1,600 player, my game with Tim kind of finished a little bit faster. So we were, as we typically do in tournaments, I was watching the games, and I was watching this game, and the 1,600 player had a very good position in the end game, but his opponent only rated 1,000, held him to a draw. So it really kind of threw the Swiss system through the pairings, made it a little bit more difficult, as what I'm having a difficult time even talking right now. And so as it stood, I ended up getting paired against the highest rated opponent, Enoch Martinez. And I'll jump onto the game right now. Crazy story. Their family, super cool family. They all play chess. I think there's like 5 siblings or something like that. And I actually played his brother Abel in a tournament last year here in Fresno. And when I saw him, I thought, well, cool. I get a chance to play his brother. This game ends up being quite interesting, and I want to make a little plug for International Master Alex Banzea's Chessable course. This is the idea here. This Chessable course that you see on the screen, highly recommend it. As you know, I'm a London system lover. There are London system lovers and haters out there. I know I love the London system. I've been playing the London system way before it was popular. Back like in 2015, I started playing the London system. I think that was about the time-ish, somewhere around there, 2015, 2013, somewhere around there. And but International Master Alex Banzea's Chessable course is fantastic. His teaching style is really easy to understand. He makes the moves make sense. Great course. Well, believe it or not, I was going over the quick starter right before the tournament and just kind of drilling some lines, looking at the variations. I really didn't know what Enoch would play, but I knew I'd try to play the London system. So I ended up, because of that weird draw by the 1,600 player with the 1,000 player, I ended up getting like the Swiss system prize, or whatever surprise, or whatever you call it. And I ended up getting white a second time, which makes a huge difference, obviously. So I played d4, and I was kind of expecting my opponent to play d5. I looked at some of his games online. I didn't know really what he played much, but I thought d4, d5 was probably going to happen. And I oftentimes play bishop f4 right away. Well, International Master Alex Banzea recommends knight f3, so I chose that way to play. He played knight f6. I played bishop f4, and then my opponent plays bishop f5, which I still think is one of the best ways to equalize against the London system. It's actually a line that I'm learning myself as black, and these early bishop f5 lines, if you know what you're doing, they can be very, very tricky. So I know I know that all the conspiracy theories and all the drama that's going in the chess world. I did actually look at this line that morning, but it's not as obscure. Okay, so I just looked at this line, and I ended up playing e3. He played e6. All this is standard. Here he takes. This was like, we were playing this pretty fast. We were like blitzing out these moves. Okay, So my opponent plays bishop d6. Now, this is the critical point, and this is the key move that International Master Alex Banzea recommends. It's a very tricky move. It is queen to b3. Now, the computer gives it roughly equal, but there's a trap here. If Black's not careful, his best move is just to play like something like queen c8, guarding the b7 pawn. I will take, and then I'll probably bring my knight out, and it's completely equal. There's nothing, we're playing an equal game. But instead, and oftentimes, in International Master Alex Banzea mentions this in his course, Black will oftentimes take this bishop. Now, this is not a good move because I get this. Well, my opponent had calculated and thought that, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to be able to save here. You got to get back here. I'm going to win a tempo. I'm going to win this pawn. But there's a key move in this position. And what happened is we play the next series of moves, knight bd7, only move. I take the bishop, which is expected here. And at this point, I'm kind of blitzing out these moves because I literally I drilled this line probably before this game started, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes before this game had started. I was looking at this line. And I took here, and he takes here. Well, there is a key move in this position, and it validates this opening. It validates this this way of pawn hunting and allowing my pawns to become kind of disheveled, which they actually are not as bad as they look because they guard some key squares. Obviously, the d3 pawn keeps the knight out of these squares, and so it's a little bit misleading. I'm up a pawn, and the pawn that I'm up is a passed pawn. It's the a pawn. So I mean, I'm having ideas of here. Well, the move that is recommended in International Master Alex Banzea's course is this: Queen A3! Exclamation point. I got to give that an exclamation point. Let's give it an exclamation point. Boom! Exclamation point. What does this move do? Stops Black from castling, attacks the rook. Now, I saved a screenshot, and I want you to see this. Does this look familiar? Does this position look familiar? This is literally, from the quick starter, the very position that I reached. This doesn't happen very often in my games. I don't know about you, especially over the board. You're thinking, what? I got the exact same position that I have in the course. And so the opening phase of the game, I credit to International Master Alex Banzea. The middle game, all of the mistakes that I made, I give myself the credit for those, because no matter how well I play in the opening, I'm still going to blunder. We have changed the look of the channel. We've changed the colors, but the blunders have not gone away. We stayed with the blenders, but I thought that was kind of crazy. Here we are, the exact same position as the course recommends, and but shocking as it may seem, my opponent did not resign in this position. Did not say, okay, so you memorized 11 moves of theory. Now I'm going to resign and let's go home. Well, no, my opponent did not do that. So plays queen b8, very good move, threatening my knight. Obviously, I have to do something about that. The computer, ironically, I was looking at this with Stockfish 15, and it recommends here to play knight bd2. I simply castled. They're about the same. There's not really a huge difference in them. And as you remember, there's problems here. There's problems here. So my opponent started to kind of think for a few minutes, and as he was thinking, I thought, okay, well, I gotta. This is something I've been learning through podcasts and stuff that I'm reading and everything. They say you're calculating during your own time. You're looking at like individual moves. You're calculating lines. You're saying, okay, what am I going to do? Well, you can't necessarily do that unless there's like an only move and you know that they're going to play that. So I'm kind of thinking, I was expecting my opponent's next move, but I was trying to think, okay, I need to get my pieces in action. I need to do something. Maybe I can bring my rook here and get my knight, bring the knights in or something like that. And so I kind of came up with an idea, and I thought that they would play this, and he did. He played queen b4. he's got to do something about this king's situation. So I ended up taking here. Now it's interesting. Like I'm looking at the Stockfish on chess.com, and Stockfish on chess.com recommends this move. Queen takes b4. So I play as good as Stockfish 11. That's what this is. Um, but Stockfish 15 on ChessBase recommends actually to play check here, Queen a8 check, and then here I go here. Now this is kind of a complicated position. They recommend keeping the queens on the board. Perhaps it's better. You don't even know, even knowing what Stockfish 15 knows, sometimes I look at their ideas and think, I think my idea seems a little easier. Now, as you might imagine, I did not play this perfectly, and I pretty much gave up my advantage. But I took the queen after they played queen. He played queen b4. I took the queen. He takes. Now, this was actually a unique game because there was a few points in this game that I sat on my hands. I said, don't make a move so fast. And I was just going to play a4 here. I thought, okay, I'm going to move this pawn. And it's not a bad move, but I thought, I can play that next move. So why don't I just bring my rook over here and attack this pawn? Okay, so you got to do something. Not only that, it kind of forces Black's hand. He doesn't want to do something like this. This is just miserable. Okay, it makes the coordination between his rook and his king is horrible. Guarding here, he can't really push or push here, so he's forced to go back. Okay, and when he does that, I can now develop my knight. I was looking at knight c3, knight bd2. I even looked at knight a3. I didn't want to block in my pawn. I chose knight bd2. And in hindsight, it was probably better for me to just immediately push a4 and see what happens with black to know where I need to put my knight. This move is like, I know I'm playing a4. I'm not going to ever play a3. I know I'm going to try to get this pawn rolling. And this is also a great point in chess, is sometimes when there's like multiple different moves, you have to ask yourself, which move do I know I'm going to make? And then which moves are like a possibility. And if there's not really anything better, perhaps it was better for me to play a4, because it was probably better to have my knight here. But I chose for I was trying to get, into positions here. I just wanted to kind of move all of my pieces over to the queen side, and just try to advance the pawn, see what I could do. Ends up being a little bit of an inaccuracy, this move here, knight bd2, but nothing catastrophic. Well, my opponent plays king e7, which is a very good move. Centralizes the king. Doesn't want a castle. There's no need to hide the king on g8. So opens up the rook. The rook's going to be coming over. Well, immediately I knew I wanted to get this pawn rolling, but I wanted to make sure that I had enough defenses, because these rooks are going to be doubled up on the a file really fast. But I calculated. I said, okay, it'll work. I'm going to play a4. He plays rook a8. I play rook a3. My idea is I'm bringing this rook underneath here. I have to be able to protect his pawn. If I lose his pawn, I mean, what in the world? I literally, all that work for nothing. Sorry about that. So then I played he played rook here to rook b a7, attacking my pawn twice. I play here. And then my opponent thought for a few minutes and came up with actually the best move. And they're not easy moves to find. Knight b8. He wants to get his knight both into c6, and he wants to get this knight here. He's maneuvering his knights to defend and then attack my pawn. I didn't really see the danger that was kind of looming in the future. And so I'm playing kind of like on autopilot. I'm bringing my knight over here to b3. My idea is I want to move here. He plays knight f7, knight fd7. So I'm thinking, okay, his knights are a little bit passive, but knights are tricky. I mean, they're going to spring into action. I mean, they have some great squares to come to. Here, he's stopping this. And in this position, again, I didn't follow my previous advice, the same idea with, play a4 first because you know you're going to play knight c3, or I mean, you don't know if you're going to play knight c3 or knight b2. You don't know where you're going to place your knight. I had ideas of getting my knights into these two squares. Well, one of these squares I can go to anytime I want, and that's this. There's not a lot that black can do to stop it. I mean, they could go here, which just like it takes away the coordination of the rooks and stuff like that, but that's knight c5 is going to happen. Knight e5, which would have been the best move in this position, is, and not only that, but it's eyeing this very important square, c6. Knight can't come here. It's not just losing, but then you're forking everything. And if now f6, then I take, and I can start bringing my king. Actually, I can just push my pawn, start bringing my king over. I'm up this pawn. I might be able to distract black and get some pawns rolling on the king side. There's a lot of options. Well, instead, I chose knight c5, and this is a mistake. Thankfully, my opponent didn't recognize or see my mistake for what it was. He should have just taken. Takes, played knight c6. Now his knight's in a great place. He's probably going to bring a rook onto the b file, and I'm not like doing worse, but I'm not doing better. And there's actually a move that Stockfish recommends in this position, is just to sacrifice the pawn. It doesn't make sense, but that is actually the best move in this position. So going back, I played knight c5, and then my opponent ended up playing f6. Wanted to keep my knight out of e5. I don't think he ever really wanted to take on c5, thinking that he would be correcting or fixing my pawn structure. But in reality, he would have probably had a much better chance to draw or maybe even win this game. So at this point, I was kind of running out of ideas. I was like, okay, I'm up a pawn, but I really don't know how to advance it. I don't know how to do, I needed a plan. And I actually was looking at a move that the computer recommends, ironically, is to play g4 in this position. But the best move, I mean, the move that I found was just to get my king centralized. It's interesting. I'm looking at the lines that the Stockfish is recommending here on chess.com, and they're not exactly what Stockfish 15 was recommending, but they're actually saying just move the knight back here. Don't allow them to take on c5 and keep the pressure. But I played king f1, which the computer likes. I'm basically bringing all of my resources over here to the queen side, and I want to centralize my king. My king is going to be an attacking piece in the endgame. So here, my opponent plays knight c6. And it was kind of at this moment that I started getting a little bit worried. My opponent's rated nearly 1900, over 200 points above me. And I was starting to feel, I don't know if you know this feeling when you're playing a game of chess, starting to feel a little bit of the slip. The feeling like the initiative is starting to slip. My ideas aren't really coming into play. I feel like he's been a lot more accurate in his moves for the last 5 moves or so, and so I thought, well, okay, I need to get my king closer to the center. I need to get it over to the queen side, and I end up playing a mistake. It was actually, it's not like a game losing mistake or anything like that. It's just a mistake because black actually has some very important resources. Thankfully, my opponent didn't see this, but this would have been swinging the game. And I'll give one line that the computer recommends, but it's knight takes, okay, and then takes. And then the idea here is that I play rook a5, attacking this pawn, d4, which is kind of forced, and then boom, I get this file. And the fascinating thing is, obviously I have a thing that threatens, so check. Like if I try to stop here, it's just boom, right here, rook b4, it's just very difficult to defend everything. And the computer already says that black is better. Not only that, but this, you look at this position, you just it would be like very demoralizing to get into a position like this because you didn't just you like completely gave away the advantage. So this move right here, King E2, was a mistake. Now, thankfully for me, or luckily for me, my opponent didn't see the best continuation by getting all this by takes, rook here, attacking the pawn. And he played rook b8. Now, I gave rook b8 in my this is something I do, is I try to analyze the game without a computer first. So I did that with these games, especially my longer over the board games. I analyzed it. I gave all my analysis, what I thought was good and bad and ugly and everything like that. And as recommended, I think in the Chess Dojo, or I was listening to, I never know where I get half of my recommendations, whether what podcast, what book, what YouTube video I've been ingesting. But I remember them saying, whatever you do, don't, I think it was a recent podcast interview, but when you finish analyzing your game by yourself, don't take out your analysis, right or wrong, after the computer corrects you. You want to keep that in, and I try to do that in my when I analyze and I type out my analysis. I will often write Stockfish recommends this move, or this is what Stockfish recommends. So rook b8. The reason why I give rook b8 a exclamation point, and I still do, is because of the idea behind it. And I really thought for a long time here. I was ready to kind of bail out and just take, but I found a move that is not recommended by the computer, but I found it to be a very good defensive resource, and I'm giving it an exclamation point, even though the computer actually recommends this. I feel like this is passive. I feel like this is not the kind of move that I would have been able to see. I don't understand all the ideas behind it. I'm blocking the file. I get that. But I played rook b3. I am basically contesting the rook, saying, what are you going to do? I do not want to allow a rook to penetrate, especially down here on the second rank. My opponent did not want to do that, so he went back. And the next move, I also was very happy I saw. There's a couple moves the computer recommends as well, but I ended up playing rook b7. And looking at the computer now, it looks like it was the number one recommended. He's kind of forced to take. I looked at like some wonky. I was calculating, can he take here? And then, if he takes here, I'll show you. I can take here, and then if he goes here, obviously that's just a huge blunder because now I am basically up the exchange, but I'm not just up the exchange. This pawn is going to be rolling, and according to Stockfish, Black's best move is to resign. Yes, you heard it. So I knew he couldn't do that. So I knew he kind of was forced to take. And I was figuring if I could get less defenders against my pawn being pushed, perhaps I'm going to be able to advance it. I was expecting rook b8 here. And I had the idea of going back here. The computer throws out like a crazy in-between move here. Takes, and then check. I can go here, or he goes here. I can actually just take here. That doesn't work. It's let's see here. Here. And then it's recommending here. It gives white, it's like basically saying it's a completely even game. I was recommending, I was expecting rook b8. My opponent ended up playing rook a7, which I thought was actually a better move because it still keeps pressure on the pawn, but also questions what I'm going to do with my knight. I drop my knight back to c5. My opponent plays knight b6. Now, right here, I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my pawn. I really feel like I'm just going to lose my pawn because he's going to move his king in here. He's going to be able to play, he's going to play e5, disrupting my knight, deflecting it, destabilizing it. All these things are coming to my mind. I played king d2, which is actually the best computer move. I've got to get my king into the game. I've got to get him working to help this pawn. This whole game is wrapped around and has been revolving around this pawn. My opponent plays king d6. Now, even though I kind of saw it as a possibility of something happening, seeing it on the board, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, seeing the king on d6 and the ability for it to destabilize my knight by playing e5, I was starting to get a little bit panicked. And I was going to, I forget what the exact thoughts that were going through my mind. I think I was thinking of like king c3 is an idea that I was thinking about, but then I was like, no, e5 is just stopping everything. This is just bad. So I spent some time thinking and calculating, and I actually did find what I believe to be a great move. Now, the computer recommends a move like h3 or g3, kind of moving some pawns on the king side, maybe get the pawns rolling there, because the computer, smarter than me, knows that if black forces his hand, I'll then be able to play my move. My move is a5. And the idea is, obviously, I'm attacking the knight, but the knight is pinned. So the knight cannot, the pawn is pinned to my knight. So the idea is, now if they play e5, I can take, they can take, and right here, I can drop back and I'm guarding the pawn and I'm guarding my knight. That was my idea. Well, what I had seen is the tactic, and you can probably see it now. You say, well, what happens if they just take this? Because I remember if there's two attackers and one defender, the attackers are going to win. Well, my opponent didn't see the tactic and took here. Now, you probably, because you see it's a double question mark, probably see the best move. And I was very happy to see this move on the board because I had already seen the tactic. And as soon as he made it, I think it was just a few seconds, looked at the move, I said, perfect. And even chess.com gave this the double exclamation point. The point is he has to take, boom, check. Now I have this. He comes here. I go here. And then he ends up going knight a4. At this point, my opponent's shaking his head, is thinking, what in the world happened here? Thinking this is, like, how did this happen? I'm going to go back and show you. We'll look at the last few moves of the game. And there was a decision that I made that I found to be practical, even though the computer didn't like it. King d6 ends up being an inaccuracy because I have a waiting move. And now if they go here, takes, now I can play here. And they can, more than likely, they'll go back here, maybe. This is just saying now I can guard this pawn. I'm going to be able to get this in. There's a lot in this position. But I kind of rushed it by playing a4 a5 right away. In hindsight, it worked. My opponent didn't see the threat, but perhaps I should have been a little more patient. But even looking at the game as it progressed, this ended up working. Takes, he goes here, takes. And then my opponent goes here, stopping me from going here. Now, on a practical level, I'm up a piece, okay? And I thought to myself, I'm going to give up my pawn in order to trade off the last active piece that black has. I don't want to mess this up, and I chose what is a practical resource. Takes, 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 and then I go here, stopping here. My opponent ends up playing queen king b5, which loses on the spot, and he resigns. But I think in this position, after winning the exchange, or basically winning a free piece, getting up the piece here, I do believe I would change this and give this an exclamation point, because I think this is a practical way to win the game, when you're going to be able to, with your knight, munch down on these pawns, and there's no reason to allow extra counterplay by your opponent. You're winning. So, yeah, that was a fun game. Huge shout out to International Master Alex Banzea. I do not get any kickbacks from Chessable. I love Chessable. I happily support them. I happily promote them. And if you've not checked out his course, check it out. I'll put a link for his course in the description. He also has a free short and sweet to get an idea. And his YouTube channel is fantastic. After you've watched all of my videos and commented on all of them, I now allow you, I free you to go into the interwebs and check out other channels. No, there's a lot of them on there. But International Master Alex Banzea's YouTube channel is fantastic. His Twitch streams are fantastic. Teaching style is great. And thanks to his course, boom, was able to get that exact same position in my game. And what can you say? What can you say? That was pretty awesome sauce. I'm trying to find that game, that move. Where are we at? Where are we at? We're here. Boom. Same position right there. Study your openings, kids. It helps. Sometimes it's nice. And it does actually feel great when you get the position that you were studying that very morning. As crazy as that might sound. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.